welcome back to another episode of the Reaction Therapy Podcast. We have a big one today for you. I cannot wait for this because to interview artists we've reacted to and to get a little glimpse into their personal life, Nick, to know kind of how they created the music, what they're like on a day-to-day basis,
Yeah.
and the mental health piece to what their artistry is. I can't wait for this. I'm going to let you announce who this is.
Okay. Well, y'all know by the title who it is, but we're
That's true.
interviewing Ivan B today. So Ivan B we've reacted to three of his songs. One is on YouTube for everybody to see, and the other two on Patreon. So that's another reason to go to Patreon because you can
Yep.
see the other two songs. But we definitely will do more Ivan B in the future. I'm excited for this one because I don't really know a ton about him, so I'm really looking forward to like getting to know who he is.
And to hear artists who have created music, and especially in this COVID world where kind of a couple years got taken off for all
Yeah,
artists who
true.
would be normally touring, and somebody who's not touring around because a lot of artists still aren't, that we get a chance to kind of hear like what's been going on and what's
Yeah,
about to go on, and your music that you've made and the music maybe that you're thinking of making or in the just actively making now.
yeah, it's true.
That's really cool. And of course, I get to ask a lot about mental health and
Of
therapy
course,
and what his views are on it, which I
of
hope are
course.
really positive.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Anything
super
else
fun.
before we get into it?
I cannot wait. Let's get into this. Let's dive in.
All right. So without further ado, here we go. Ivan B.
Ivan B, thanks so much for taking the time to be here on the Reaction Therapy Podcast. I know you're a busy guy and you've got a lot going on, but we really appreciate you spending a few minutes with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, I have to ask first off, it's a double question. Number one, I want to know about your name and Ivan B. I Googled you and tried to find where the B was. I couldn't find it, but tell us where your name originated and then also when your kind of music career started.
Yeah, well, the B kind of stands for my last name. My last name is Paniagua, and in English, it translates to bread and water, which is what I went by when I started making music in high school. And you know, to make it short and sweet, I wanted to make it more of like something that stands out a little bit more clean. So I kind of just went by my first name, but I wanted to keep something from my roots, so, I kept the B at the end of it, which is, the first part of your question. The other part, I started making music when I was a freshman in high school. Uh, I remember I used to be a pretty big gamer back in the day, so I didn't have any equipment. I just had my I think this is, like, the first time I'm talking about this, but, um I had a PlayStation headset that I used to record on GarageBand, uh, and then the first beat I think I, like, ever wrote to was, to, um, "Stan" by Eminem, like, that one beat.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's kinda how that started. I was, like, 14, 15.
That is so cool. I mean, it's amazing how much can happen nowadays, right? With technology and what people can do, even from the time you're 14 to now, like what
Yeah.
you can do with that. It's incredible. Mm.
Yeah, it was, it didn't sound too good, but that's where, you gotta start somewhere.
Right.
So I guess my first question I would ask you is, so you obviously have been an artist for a little bit now. So what would you tell your younger self if you got the chance to kind of not start all over again, but kind of like look back? What would you tell
Yeah.
your younger self?
Um, Honestly, back then, I was into mental health aware, so I was pretty hard on myself a lot. Right now I go to therapy once every other week. So the biggest thing I would tell my younger self, I guess, is to not be so hard on yourself, uh, and to just enjoy the process of making music and not worry too much about like how it's gonna be perceived or just to because I always made music because I needed to make music, but
Mhm.
I remember back then I was worried about like the perception of it, and yeah, I guess mainly just to not overthink and to be too hard on yourself.
That is really
Okay.
good because, man, when you talk about high school, and even becoming an artist, but especially high school, just for every person out there, there's so
Yeah.
much focus on fitting in and, an image that you present, especially now with social media. I've been a psychotherapist for what, 27 year, almost 30 years now. And I've seen from the days when there wasn't technology, honestly, in the mid 90s to now. And I can't believe how image driven everything is now, because you put posts out and you put pictures or videos of yourself and everyday people. When I was in high school, you went home and you were with your friends in the neighborhood or whatever. And then you went back to
Yeah.
school the next day and saw those people. But now it's on 24/7. And that leads to my thought of, okay, mental health side here. I
Yeah.
kind of thought of a question of, does your upbringing or your life enter your lyrics at all? But I think every artist probably life enters their lyrics. But how much has your life experience entered the lyrics you've written down?
I think pretty much almost all of it,
Really?
mainly because, I'm just the type of person I just can't, like, fake anything. Like, if I feel something, I have to say it in the moment or just be honest with who I'm talking to, and when I'm making music, it's kinda like I'm being honest with myself, so I think that's as raw as it can get. Um, Pretty much, I mean, like, growing up, I didn't really have, like I had some friends, but I wasn't, like I was kinda like the outcast person, like, in, like, high school, I kinda did my own thing a bit. I made music, and people were like, "Oh, you're rapping now?" And it's just like, everyone's, like, looking forward to college and going to,
Hmm.
whatever universities, and I was never really too good at school. Uh, I was just I was just, like, writing lyrics in, like, class. I should have been paying more attention,
Yeah.
but I was just so into the art of it that, you know, part of me just always had, like, a knack for, like, giving advice, especially to, like, my close friends. So, when I'm making music, I kinda felt like I was taking the approach of, like, giving advice to myself. So, I don't know, it's kinda like a weird perspective I kinda had on that.
It's got to be very hard as an artist, because I almost think sometimes it's like putting your journal or your diary out to the world. You're telling your life story. It's personal. You've been through something. And
Yeah.
even if it's not you personally, but you experience something with a friend or family member or something, it's going out there for everybody else to listen to and say whether it actually is good or not. And just,
Yeah. There was a day that if I didn't I was making music and then the success never came, but I loved making music, I'd still make music
yeah.
because I think the success is like, a byproduct of that,
Hmm.
and I kinda had a sense of that as long as I'm doing what I want to do, you know, I don't mind, feeling the need of, like, sense of urgency or having that sense of urgency that comes along with it because I feel like that's kinda like the, um, the part of it, and, like,
Yeah.
I look up to, a lot of not a lot of artists, but there's, like, a few artists like J. Cole, I was a really big fan of when I was a waiter, and hearing other artists' stories and when they're successful, how they wish they, like, kind of appreciated the grind a little bit
Hmm.
more,
Yeah.
And so when I was a waiter, I was, like, listening to J. Cole, I'm like, "Man, yeah, this is the these are the
Mm.
hard times, I gotta, like, suck it in." Um,
Yep.
so, like, kinda the unknown kinda pushed me more, to be honest, yeah.
So
Yeah.
you kind of were going where I was going with
Love
that.
that.
Is there an artist that you look up to as a person? So you said J. Cole. Is there any other kind of artist that you look up to?
Um Right now, not so much. Back then, my taste is, like, always changing, I like having a wide open palette of music. I love, hearing other artists, like, stories on how they, like, grew up and, like, and what inspired them. Like, for me, like, the J. Cole, like, story where he, kinda was making beats and kinda stood out of one of, Jay-Z's, studio. buildings or whatever in the rain just to hand him a beat tape, um, and other stories like Logic and, like, how he grew up, and around that time when I was making music, I, um, I used a lot of those stories to kinda, like, form some sense of, like, I can do it too, and when I had that sense, I kinda wanted to push that narrative a little bit more into my own music, um, and a lot of that came well, you could find it in my first album, like, Don't Look Down.
Mhm.
So I kinda was inspired by, um, those stories that, anyone can do it, that if you don't put yourself down, um, you can make you can make it. Um, I for today, like, artists that inspire me today, like, I haven't really been listening to too much, like, other music. I kinda just been working on my own stuff lately,
Mhm.
and the next chapter, I'm kinda, um, working on, like, a sequel a little bit, from my first album, so, I kinda went on a tangent there, but hopefully I answered your question.
I wondered about that just off the top of my head. Like, what do artists do? Like, people that we do a reaction channel on YouTube, and people that listen to us, listen to so much different music. And I wonder how artists who are creating and trying to get in the mode of like creating new music, you just kind of made me think maybe they do have to stay in their own vibe, their own music instead of listening to a bunch of music because it can all come in. I wonder, is that true? Like where when you're creating, you stay like kind of in your own bubble?
Um, yes and no, like, I love, like, hip hop and, like, rap. I
Mhm.
listen to, like, a lot of Drake, I like J. Cole a lot, I like Logic, um, and I like, alternative bands and pop artists. I like even listening to Justin Bieber, I like Lainey, Ed Sheeran, just a lot of, uh, different types of artists because they're very talented. They're all, you know, and have their own styles um, it's all kind of like it really inspires me to kinda push
Mhm.
myself more artistically and, with my songwriting, especially with, like, melodies and
Yeah.
because growing up, like or when I first started making music, I didn't know how to sing. I didn't know what a key was, And,
Uh-huh.
and the last couple of years, I kind of figured out a little bit more of the difference between being like a good rapper and like a good
Mhm.
songwriter.
Wow.
Because most of the times you can be a really good rapper, uh, but it doesn't necessarily translate to songwriting and like hooks and like melodies. So, um, yeah, I guess I also what I would tell my younger self is to learn piano.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
or pick up an instrument. It would have been more useful by now.
That's
That's
really
so
cool.
cool.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna ask, so you kind of you've mentioned like kind of like stuff you do. So what about your like daily life? Tell us like a little bit behind the scenes of like what a day in the life of
Yeah.
Ivan B is and
Do.
like
Yeah.
how you keep yourself balanced.
That's what a lot of people behind the scenes I want to hear. Like,
Yeah.
what are you like when you're not on the screen?
Mm.
Yeah, honestly, I'm a very spontaneous person. I'm also a very routine-based person. Like, it just depends on how I feel when I wake up. I'm pretty grounded in the sense of like, well, now I am because of therapy. Because not to go off on another tangent, but I'm a pretty big perfectionist, and what comes with that is like workaholism. And so before
Yeah.
you asked me that question like 3 years ago, I'd be like, yeah, I just rap, work out, come back and rap and go to bed, you know? And, but now, I like taking drives. I like hanging out with some of my really close friends. I like a lot of deep life, philosophy type, talks and, um, I like, I do like working out. I do love mental health. Um, I like, making music while I'm not necessarily even recording, but, like,
Mhm.
in, like, some random place out there in the middle of nowhere, like, I just like, being more present in the moment, so, Um, usually on like a day to day, I'm either working out, going on a run outside, or spending time with my family.
Yeah.
Um, I traveled quite a bit as well. I just came back from Lake Tahoe
Mm,
a little bit ago. I like taking a lot of like riding trips, especially like with where my life is at right now. I feel like I'm just stepping into the best place I've been musically and like what I want to say in a very
yeah.
long time. So lately I've been more like uh more spiritual and like
Mhm.
taking a look around me more. So I think that's super important when it
That-
comes to making music.
That's pretty cool. And the introspective piece, you walked right into my arena of mental health, which I advocate for a lot. A lot of the music I listen to, well, almost all of the music I react to, I've never heard of before, and sometimes the artists I've never heard of. But you mentioned mental health. I'm a huge proponent of it, obviously, as a
Yeah.
psychotherapist. But I'm the first to tell people all the time there is good treatment and there's bad treatment. And I hate when people come to me and they've had therapy in the past and it didn't go well or it didn't work because a lot of times it's kind of like doctors. You go to a doctor and they're not all great, and some of them haven't been trained
Yeah.
as well as others. And so our whole preaching here, like Nick's shirt that's on today, is we say balance keeps me stable. And I thought, well, let's just keep that mantra because eating, sleeping, exercise, movement around, keeping a balance in life keeps us
Yeah.
mentally more stable. Problems still happen, but we can cope with them more. And I wondered, I'm so grateful you said mental health because what does it mean to you when you consider therapy? To me it's always meant to be preventative, not reparative. It's not meant to be an ER room where life has
Yeah.
fallen completely apart. It's meant to keep problems from happening. But what does mental health mean to you and what does therapy mean?
Um, Pretty much it means to honor your feelings. I think
Good.
a lot of people think that feeling down is a bad thing or feeling sad is a bad feeling or feeling lonely is a bad feeling. These are just all feelings are good, you know? And the biggest thing is to honor them. If you feel like you don't want to do something and you would rather sit on the couch for a day, be there 100%, you know?
Mhm.
If
Mhm.
you feel like you want to if you feel like you don't wanna work out that day, it's a like, that's completely okay too.
Yeah.
I feel like, a lot of the times people kinda struggle with, a sense of not feeling good enough, and that stems from not honoring how you really feel because you're overworking yourself because you feel
Mhm.
like you need to do things. But the most important thing you need to do is take care of yourself.
Yeah.
So, um, as the simplest answer I can give is to be more like aware and in tune on like how you feel on those hard days and to understand that that's just your body letting you know, hey, I kind of need a little bit of a break.
Mhm.
Um, your body is actually very aware and in tune a lot more, like your subconscious,
Yeah.
um, on the things that you actually need. If you pay more attention to those things, slowly you'll feel a big difference in your life when you wake up, when you wanna do things, you'll feel um, more validated and more empowered when
Yeah.
you start putting yourself as a priority, and in order to do that, you have to first look at on how you're honoring your feelings, so that's kinda like the biggest thing for me.
That's why the pieces of journaling, of yoga, of meditation, all of those things are so valuable for people to get within themselves instead of staying up in their brain and their head with all the thoughts all day. So that was really well said about feelings and how important they are. Good job, man.
Oh, thank
I
you.
like that.
All right. So we have obviously we told you beforehand that we have a really good, or maybe during it, I don't remember, really good supporter of our channel, Zach Sabala, who
Oh, shout out to Zach. He
huge
is,
supporter of
man, he's
you.
like Ivan B is mental health.
Um
Y'all have to react
yeah.
to this.
So he's been a huge supporter of you and us as well. So I asked him, I'm like, okay, I want to ask you two questions that Zach has asked. So the first one being, what was the biggest thing in your life, or what has been the biggest thing in your life that has impacted you the most from a mental health perspective?
Wow. Okay.
The first,
What has impacted him most from a mental health perspective that you want to
Uh,
share?
yeah,
oh, yeah, no, that's fine. Man, the biggest thing, I mean, there's a lot of big things that kind of like impacted me for sure. Um, I guess the biggest thing is that I haven't ever really talked about it, and I'm okay to talk about it. And I'm also gonna be kind of diving into it more on my next project
Cool.
for next year. But a lot of people don't know that I was actually married for a year.
Mm.
And like I said, mental health really played a part on why I'm not married anymore.
Wow.
The with the whole therapy thing.
Yeah.
And before I had a lot of like anxiety, a lot of, you know, depression that I didn't address.
Mhm.
And because of that, if you don't, take care of yourself in the right ways, you're gonna end up in situations or
Yeah.
make decisions that you wouldn't have made if you kind of took
Hmm.
inventory on how you felt and how you carry yourself. So, dealing with looking back on how I made decisions on how I felt out of, feeling, not good enough,
Hmm.
um, loneliness, and things like that. Um, what impacted me most from that whole experience was that there isn't any other place that can give you the feeling of feeling good enough but yourself, and coming to a sense of like peace and figuring that out really kind of empowered me more into being more secure with who I am and my values and kind of what I want out of life, and not necessarily like, even if it's like not paired with how I grew up
Hmm.
or what was like expected of me or whatever, even with like my faiths or
Yeah.
beliefs. Um, so I think that's kind of one of the biggest things that helped me shape my like whole mental health like journey, is kind of the whole um feeling of independency and like being strong in just who you are as a person and as a man, that
Yeah.
you don't really need anyone else. You kind of just you know when you have that sense of like grounding in that regard, it's kind of like you kind of like open your eyes on like who are your friends and who
Yep.
is really close to you, and like
Yeah.
and that whole world. Yeah.
That's what I want people to understand about mental health, that number one, it's not a one-way street when it comes to therapy. It's not just you go in, you sit down, people get this picture of you sit down and you just like talk your feelings and then you get up and you leave and you come back the next week. And it's a two-way street. And if you have a good mental health professional, they are, what I try to do is I try to kind of be a mirror in a way. Like I'm going to show you what I see going on
Yeah.
with you and where you've been, what you've been through. And I'm going to care about you, support you, but also confront you on the things that I notice, the blind spots you can't tell,
Mhm.
and that helps you find yourself. Like for me as a mental health person, it's not me fixing anything for people, it's just me having insight and awareness about patterns of behavior and things that I notice, and you actually transform yourself. I mean, you just laid that out so clearly, and I love how people who don't see you on a day-to-day basis can get a perspective of Ivan B, that, hey, he's a real guy too. He's been through real stuff. He might be creating music, but that doesn't mean life and problems and challenges aren't out there for you as well. Gosh.
Yeah.
All right. So the second question he asked, and you kind of alluded to it a little bit, but the question that I asked you was about an artist that you look up to.
Mhm.
Zach's question is more about what artist or person influenced you the most to make music?
Um, I guess, growing up probably would be Eminem,
Huh.
to rap.
Yeah.
Um, I grew up listening to a lot of Michael Jackson too.
Oh, wow.
That's cool.
My dad actually was like a DJ when I was like a really small child.
That's so
Um,
cool.
and he and yeah, uh, Michael Jackson and and Eminem, they're 2 different, but
Yeah.
they really, like, inspired me a lot. I mean, I was a huge M fan. I wasn't really allowed to listen to Eminem when I was a kid though, but, as I grew older, I was like, "I'm still gonna listen to Eminem."
Anyway, yeah.
But, yeah, no, like, just the storytelling part
Yeah.
but what really, like, captivated me was, like, even though, like, a lot of his stuff is, I'm very he's very, like, blunt and direct, but also super, like, honest,
Mhm.
like, very introspective at times and super, um, just honest on, like, where he's at in life and not, like, withholding, like, when you listen to a lot of his stuff, it's very, "I'm just gonna say how I feel, and this is how it is, and this is
Yeah.
what happened, this is exactly what happened," you know? So, it inspired me to just kinda do that in my own way with my own life and, like, say things that, people don't really wanna talk about,
Mhm.
um, which is, like, the more I did that, the more I saw the audience grow because they're like, "Oh, I relate to this. This is what happened. I never talk about it because it's super personal."
Yeah.
You know? That's what they would tell me. So, at the same time, talking about my personal life and the hardships that I've gone through is very therapeutic for me. Sometimes I forget that people will, hear it.
Yeah, I know.
Like the hardest parts of your life but I've kind of, you know that's what inspired me from Eminem's, listening to his stuff.
Yeah.
Um Was just, like, being okay with just being honest and putting that into your music and let
Mhm.
people have it for themselves, you know? Which is why I'm fine with, like, talking about, like, the hardships in my life and because I
Yeah.
know people will, like, relate to it and even though they might not be comfortable talking about it,
Mhm.
there's something about hearing someone else talk about it that you're like, "Ah, man, I went through this," and even though I don't have, people to talk to about it, I can listen to this artist and
Yeah.
he's talking about it, you know? So I
And
feel like I don't know, I feel like it's kinda like a calling a little bit to just be a little bit more honest on, like,
mhm.
the harder things that I've been through, such as, like, just the way some things in my life when I grew up that I talk about in my music and, even the things that I just went through the last couple of years. Um, so, sometimes when I feel, like, a little bit insecure on, like, is this a little too much?" Is this just, like I I actually do listen to other artists and their music, and I find myself, like, getting inspired because they're like, "Man, like, they're just painting such, like, a vivid picture
Mhm.
that I need to, like" it pushes me to, push my pen and,
Yeah.
like, I think about, like, what am I saying, Like, that's kind of, like, a little bit more just to put more meaning behind it and things like
Mhm.
that.
And that's why, speaking of Eminem, I think it's very honest. And one thing I've noticed about him and his music, because I didn't really listen to much of it either prior to last December, is that he's very good at also raising his hand and taking accountability. Like this, like you said, this is what happened. This is how it went down. This was my part of it. Like this is what I should have done as a father or a husband or a person. And
Yeah.
he just owns it and moves on. I thought that was really cool. But your music, okay, I've got to ask 3 questions on songs that we've reacted to with you.
Mhm.
This is just selfish for me, but with Lost, like who are you speaking to there?
Yeah.
The message in that song, like I was sitting there trying to figure out who is he talking to?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, that song, like, I'm a very spiritual person, I'm very active at heart, like, I believe in
mhm,
God, and, like, back then, I was, like I said, I was, like, pretty hard on myself, and it wasn't really, like, in regards to just with music, it was kinda like with, like, "What's my purpose in life?" Like,
mhm,
uh, I pray and, like, I don't get answers and things like that. Um, at that time, all my friends or the friends that I did have, they were, "Yeah, I'm moving out of state. I'll see you later,"
yeah,
and I'm still in my hometown. I'm like, so at that time of my life, I'm broke.
Yeah.
I have a 2.3 GPA. I'm a waiter. Don't have all my classes, uh, even passing in college, like,
Yep.
just because I'm, like, making music, and I don't have anything really to show for it except for, a little bit of a buzz on SoundCloud at
Yeah.
the time. So, I was, basically talking to God for the most part in that song, um, and, I talk about a little bit of other things in that song. Sometimes I write lines in my music that's just like reminders just for myself. So when I go back and listen to it, I know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Um, that's just kinda like my selfish thing with what I do with my music is sometimes it isn't even for the people, it's for
Yeah.
myself. So people are like, "Yo, when you said that, what does this mean?" And sometimes I don't wanna talk about it because it's, like, kind of like a special thing for myself, you know? Uh, I don't know, I've always kinda liked doing that. Um, but just, side note, but yeah, I basically was talking to, like, God and being, like, kind of introspective with that as well.
What about like with this time? It had a very NF kind of feel to it. I don't know if you've listened to much NF or you've had any inspiration from
Yeah, I
him,
love
but
NF, NF's good.
it had a real that was really cool. Like I love that vibe. I even saw uh Crip do a reaction to you of that. And it was really cool. But any inspiration? Because I've heard you sing and I've heard you rap. Like I've heard different styles from you in the music that we've heard, which is really cool for the range. Do you
Yeah.
like one over the other? The singing, the rapping?
Well, the thing is, like, since, like, before my album days, I made, like, 3 mixtapes, and I've always, like, loved making different kinds of music, you know? It's just that when I wanted to make a really serious album and, like, a super deep one and just rap, and that's the one that kinda blew up a little bit, you know? But if you look before that, like, like, the day ones, like, the real day ones, like, they know, like, I love, like, R&B. I love, like, even though it it wasn't mixed, it didn't sound too good back then, but just the I just, you know, I just love all kinds of music,
Yeah.
and, yeah, like, like, the song "This Time," I remember writing that I was in some mountain, in Northern California, and it was a bunch of stars, and I took my laptop made music on, and I plugged it into my aux in my and I was just there for a few hours, and I was just writing,
Wow.
and, yeah, it definitely, you know I've always been, like, a very, like, emotional person. I'm not apologetic with, like, how
Mhm.
I, put my energy into my music or what I say or whatever, but, at that time, um I just kind of wanted to push that energy a bit more, and then, I forgot who it was, but someone was like, "Yo, you don't curse in your music, and it's really cool." Um, they're like, "Yo, you remind me of my favorite rapper, NF." I'm like, "Who's that?" Uh, and, it was, who was it? I forgot who was I with. I think I was with one of my close friends and his his friends and his girlfriend. They're like, "Yeah." There's, like, 4 of them, and they, like, showed me, like, NF, and I was like, "Yo, this guy's awesome." So, um, yeah, I get inspired, like, from all kinds of music, you know? And, his stuff is really good. Um, what I like about his, work is that he's really good at singing. His I think his, like, singing is super underrated. That's
Mm.
the first thing that caught my ear with him.
Wow.
Um, but, yeah, I'm sure there's, like, a lot of influence that comes from his stuff into mine and with other artists too.
Yeah.
Yep.
Cool.
Anything else? Oh, I've got
Nothing for
more.
me. Okay, you go
Okay.
ahead.
Space. The
Yeah.
cornfield thing. Was that an actual cornfield you were in for that video? Like, or what? kind of field was that?
Oh, man, yeah, that was, shout out to my director, Cam. That
Man,
guy,
that was a
he's a beast.
phenomenal video.
Oh, yeah, he, co-directed, Olivia Rodrigo's, that one really big song, um,
Good for
Path
you.
no, the other
Driver's
one,
license.
Driver's License,
Oh,
yeah,
wow. Yeah, that was
yeah,
cool.
and he's like an independent director too. He's just really good at what he does, and he had like this really cool storyboard he presented me. He's like, "Yo, we're gonna go to this cornfield, and you're gonna be rapping in it, and we're gonna get some shots, and we're gonna get your fans to come out, you know, to those weren't those are those are fans that drove from everywhere to be in the video
My
That's really
from
goodness.
out of state. They flew in,
That's
and
crazy.
I didn't even know. My director just said it last minute. He's like, "Yeah, we're gonna get your fans. We put out a you know,
Wow.
a thing."
And how
Yeah.
they were just hiding in the different pockets of the cornfield and you were just walking around and like just talking about space. Like it was really well done, told the story.
Yeah, it was a really cool experience. Like that whole video, it was a long day, but I love how it came out, and I loved meeting. Like I didn't think like when he told me, um, excuse me, that people that were, he didn't want to hire. He wanted the fans to come and be cool to get that experience. It's kind of like a cool thing to just look back on. I wasn't sure if anyone would even come, but we had people that literally like they drove from like 4 or 5 states over because they just wanted to make the road trip. People flew in from like New York.
Mhm.
Um, and then what was really cool was that after their stuff was done, it's like 80 people there. Um, um, that they all kind of like stayed after for, like, 2
Mhm.
hours and kinda, like, set up this, like, meet and greet on by themselves with, like, the security at the front. They're like, "Yo, is it cool?" I had no idea, my crew and I, we had no idea. So I come out and, like, they're just all there, and they had my music playing on, like, this beat pill, and the people that, worked at that facility, they're like, "Yeah, they wanna take pictures with you." I'm like, "Okay." So um, yeah, that was a really cool experience. That was awesome.
Is that like, okay, I got two questions really to end it. But number one, what do you tell? Because I think it's important. And you've been like literally the best at talking about mental health of anybody we've talked to. Any people out there, I say teenagers a lot of times because that's a bunch of our audience, but really anybody yeah, that is struggling or has struggled with mental health stuff, hasn't gotten help, doesn't know if help would even help. And like, what
Mhm.
do you say to somebody who like has gone through a lot? You've gone through a lot that hasn't gotten help or hasn't gotten the right help. Like, what would you push them towards or advise them?
Um, well, what I would say is that if you're doing something, like if you go see a therapist and it isn't because you wanted to go, you're not gonna be as receptive.
Mm,
So, um, what I would say to anyone is to have just an open mind because I'm as stubborn as it comes. I thought like, "You know what? I can figure it out myself," or, "I don't really feel like talking to someone I don't know.
hmm
I'm paying them, so it's like, what I'm paying them for so they can talk to me," you know what I mean? But the thing is, like, um, honestly, it's like the best decision I ever made because these are, they're doctors in their own right, and a lot of
hmm
them are very empathetic, and they understand what you're going through, and, like, um, they can help you in a lot of ways that you probably wouldn't even have thought,
hmm
or they can help you, find, uh, what the real issue is that you probably wouldn't have thought. Um, I think, I honestly believe everyone in the world should go to therapy, at least try it for a month, and
hmm
I guarantee you almost everyone will probably stay.
Yeah.
Um, the thing is, what I've learned from going to therapy, and what's like most important to me is understanding your boundaries and your values. And when you understand those things, you understand how to stand up for yourself.
Yeah.
So a lot of the times people that don't go to therapy but feel like depressed or anxious,
Hmm.
um, they have a hard time standing up for themselves where they feel defeated, or they feel unheard. And the thing is like to empower yourself where you feel strong and you feel good,
Hmm.
you kind of need to understand yourself a bit more. And it's okay to like um have that help, and the word help, I feel like comes with like a negative connotation
Yeah.
that there's
You're
something
right.
wrong with you, or
Hmm.
that you're not, good enough. And that's like completely the opposite. I
Hmm.
think um I just the word like help doesn't really sit right with me because I feel
Yeah.
like um I like the word like, empower. If you want to
Hmm.
empower yourself more, you want to feel good, you want to
Yeah.
feel better, you want to take action,
Hmm.
then you should go to therapy. Just one
Yeah.
Google search away, therapist near me,
I know. And
you know.
especially when you find somebody, or Ivan, when you ask people around you, you get feedback because some people have been themselves, but they don't really talk about it. And they would if you asked me, like, hey, do you know of anybody that's good? And my wife and I, she does the same thing I do, Ivan. So Nick's had the privilege of two therapists growing up his whole life. So I'm not sure what that means, but we had this same conversation about the paying and the money and whether it's worth it.
Mhm.
And I believe because it can be expensive, and a lot of people bring up the notion, which I think just minimizes it, but of the idea of somebody paying to just talk to somebody. There's two reasons for it. Number one, it's for the skill and expertise of somebody. It's somebody who is trained specifically to do that skill. The second, though, which is the critical one, is I am paid and invested in a relationship with somebody because I only see a certain number of people in the week. I'm invested now in this relationship with you. And
Yeah.
if I wasn't paid and I was just there, I could come or go, or I can't meet with you today, or I don't want to.
Mhm.
I'm in this relationship and invested and care about your well being. I don't want you to be here 5 years from now. I don't want you to be here any longer than you have to. And I believe in who you can become. And so I hope people can hear your message, what you just said, that give it a try and you would be shocked at the
Yeah.
end. It's like 12-step programs say, give us a try for 90 days. Come to meetings. We'll be glad to refund your misery if you want your money back. It's just give you your misery back, go back out on the streets. But it's the same with therapy. You can go back to your life if it doesn't work. But thank you for that. And the final question I had was, um, for us, what should we react to next for you? You've got so much music, but if we've done this time, space, and lost, give us the next two or three we should do of your music.
Um,
I'm gonna write it down.
I would say 100% you should react to my next song coming out called "Used to Be." It should be out probably around sometime the end of this year.
Wow, cool.
Yeah.
Okay. What else? I want another one
Um,
that I could do like now.
Another one you could do now. Um, which ones have you heard already?
We've done Lost, Space, and This Time.
Okay. I kind of want you to a lot of people love these two songs.
Mm.
I think they would get a kick out of you watching it. It probably um they have music videos, would either be My Way or 1, 2, 3, 4.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Cool. I love it. We'll ask
Thank you.
Zach because he's probably already heard
Yeah,
everything.
he's already
He'll
heard it.
tell.
Sure.
We're gonna do those for sure. Ivan, thank you so much for being a part of our podcast and really for sharing your wisdom and your experience. Like, I mean, it's been
Yeah.
phenomenal. The things you say, given the life that you're living at such a young age, is really impressive to me, and we really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks for
Yeah.
coming on and being willing to talk to us about mental health because
No
it was
kidding.
really helpful
No, you
for
guys are
us
great.
and then also
Yeah.
everybody else. So
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. I hope you guys have a great day.
Well, there you have it, Ivan B. That was such a great podcast. I think we definitely hit the nail on the head.
Man.
He talked so much mental health. It was so cool.
I did not want that one to end for sure. Mainly because he was so honest with what's happened in his life. He was so clear at describing the value of mental health,
Yeah.
but also his passion for music. The guy loves making music, and to
Love it.
make a decision like, I'm just going to dive in and I'm going to go for it. I'm going to be a rapper and I'm going to create music.
It totally reminded me of NF and when I grew up.
Yes.
Like, I want to be a
Yep.
rapper, like from a little kid.
Be a
like,
rapper.
Like just that whole part, it totally reminded me of NF. And so I think it's cool how he did mention also that he didn't know who NF was, and then people told him about him, and I
now
love
he's a
NF,
huge fan.
So I think
But
that's really
to
cool.
hear that song Space, to see it in a cornfield, ask him about that.
Yeah.
And then to think, man, his next video, if he makes another video, I want to have a fan video where we get to fly out. I want to be in one of those videos just to see him filming and to be a part of the process, because his music has such a clear message and a great message. Really had a blast. I still had a list of questions to ask that I didn't get to, but I wasn't going to keep him all day.
Yeah. We got to respect his time, you know. He's a
More
busy guy.
artists to come. Let's just keep this going. This is my funnest part of doing all of our podcasts, is the artist interviews.
Yeah, they're so fun. So cool to just see, like, because I think, again, Ivan talked about how he's just a normal guy too. Like, he has problems. He talked about his problems, and I think that's so cool. If y'all want to see a little extra clip that you didn't get to see on this podcast, go over to Patreon or become a YouTube member, and there's going to be a little 5 to 10 minute clip of part of the podcast that you didn't get to see on YouTube. So if you want to see the extra 5 to 10 minute clip, definitely become a YouTube member or go over to Patreon. It will be on there.
Another perk, as simple as it is. It's very affordable to be a YouTube member or a Patreon subscriber to get these all these extra added incentives. So cool.
It's totally worth it, especially if you're a big Ivan B fan. You're definitely going to want to check it out, because you might even get to hear Tom say something that I didn't think he was going to say. So,
oh boy, I don't know what that was. Let's see.
But anyway, yeah. So go check that out. Anything else you want to say before we get?
I just appreciate everybody who's listened to this podcast, made it what it is today. The channel that's grown so big, so fast, and so close. And Nick, thank you for pulling this all together, because without you, this isn't happening. The engineering of everything, the setting up of all these appointments, you've arranged all of this with Ivan B.
I do have to take credit. I did reach out to Ivan B. Tom didn't even know. I'm like, I got Ivan B. And he's like, what?
It is so awesome to just see the wheels turning and things happening. And man, I can't wait for his next piece of music. The song Used to Be, that's coming out by the end of the year. We're going to get to that.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you so much for watching this episode of the podcast, and we'll see you on the next Reaction Therapy podcast.